Hey everyone, it's Emily with Spiceworks. Thanks for tuning in today and joining us on another Spiceworks Partner Webinar, Business Opportunities around Business Opportunities around Windows Server 2003, End of Support, brought to you by Ingram Micro. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that this webinar will be recorded, so if you have to step away for any reason, you will get an email with the link to the video in about a week. Also, there's a Q&A box on your screen to the left. We encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. We will get to those questions at the end via a verbal Q&A. But if your question isn't addressed live, Ingram Micro will be able to follow up with you. So now all the housekeeping is done, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Tim Jeffcoat, Category Manager for HP Servers UK. Chris Briley-Roberts, Microsoft Channel Marketing. Adrian Boyd, SMB Partner Channel Manager for Azure. Paul Jeffries of Ingram Micro Professional Services. So Tim, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. We wanted to start off this webinar just by taking a quick look at the direction that the IT industry is going in. The way that customers are designing their IT environments has changed quite a lot over the last 5 years, and we wanted to start out just by reminding ourselves exactly what are some of the key drivers, the key trends that are really pushing this change in the way that IT is consumed by our respective customers. And then just to look at some of the new hardware releases that have taken place over the last few months that can really be leveraged by customers and obviously by IT companies working with customers on Windows Server 2003 refresh or migration projects. So my name is Tim Jeffcoat, and I spend a lot of time at HP in the servers business unit looking at the state of the server market, looking at our product lifecycle, our roadmaps, and really understanding where our products are going to be going. And that the Windows Server 2003 migration is a very important thing for many of our customers that we've paid close attention to in the release of a lot of our recent products. So as I mentioned in my little introduction, the expectations that customers are placing on their IT environments have fundamentally shifted over the last few years. Going back to kind of 2009, 2010, customers would buy and acquire IT in what we term at HP a hardware-orientated fashion. They would look at the apps they wanted to run, maybe the operating system minimum requirements, and then the applications they're going to be loading onto that, and then building up their environment like that, and buying hardware on a very transactional basis according to the specifications of the specific project or workload they were looking to run. The challenge with this, though, it was very siloed and product-centric. They would come and buy servers from one vendor and storage for another, networking for another, and they would do the integration themselves, or they would work with another IT organization to integrate this hardware into an environment that they could use. And this formed, obviously, IT environments that were capable and up to the job, but nevertheless, as these environments have aged, they've become very expensive to maintain because of the siloed approach that was taken in designing them. We've seen a shift, as I said, over the last few years to what HP deems the new style of IT, which really starts by looking at the desired business outcomes. What exactly is a customer trying to achieve with this project? And by starting with the business outcomes and understanding the real key drivers that is really bringing a customer to the purchasing table and making them look at acquiring new IT equipment, this allows us to design a solution that better takes in the future growth that this organization might anticipate, or to really make sure that we're sizing the solution appropriately. As you can see some of the stats at the bottom, at the moment we're anticipating, it's anticipated that customers spending a large chunk of their budget simply on maintaining existing systems, which doesn't really give them the resources that they need to invest in the future. And this is really what the whole Windows Server 2003 project is all about. It's all about helping organizations to move from their legacy applications, their legacy environments, into an environment that they will use to support their business for the next few years. So this new style of IT is all about the business outcomes, and it allows organizations to really achieve what they want to in a faster, more agile, simpler, and a more efficient manner. There are three major kind of subsections to this that we define as hybrid cloud, convergence, and software-defined. And these industry trends are what enable customers to really get the business outcomes that they're seeking. So that's kind of a top-down, very quick look at some of the key trends that we've identified as a hardware vendor within the IT industry as to how our customers are actually acquiring the products that we are bringing to market. In our most recent product launch in September last year, we launched our 9th generation of ProLiant servers. And these three trends, so software-defined, hybrid cloud, and convergence, were key in a lot of the changes we've made to our products and the way that we are bringing them to market. So let me introduce a few of the products that we announced in September last year and in subsequent announcements in December and also in January this year. We've taken the opportunity to completely revamp our rack server lineup. We've had our 300 series of servers like the DL380 and the DL360 on the market for nearly a decade now, and they're our best-selling servers. With Gen8, Generation 8 that we launched in 2012, we introduced the 100 series of servers. And with Gen9, we've added a couple of new models to that. And this is really all about giving customers more choice. Our 300 series have been the industry benchmark for dual processor 1 and 2U rack servers for a number of years. And with Generation 8, we introduced a large number of features such as the sea of sensors and advanced ILO and so on that really made this the industry-leading server. However, not all of our customers want or need or use all of the bells and whistles that we've designed into the 300 series, and that's where the 100 series sits. It scales down on some of the features, but still offers a robust, high-performance and reliable server for a range of different workloads. New with Gen 9 that we've never had in the portfolio before is the 10 series, and this continues kind of the downsizing of our server portfolio. It strips out even more features, even more components, really to be just a bare-bones workhorse server. The 10 series, the 100 series, and the 300 series all share the same processor family. They all use Intel's Xeon E5 2600 V3 series of processors. The difference comes between the different families with the options that can be added. So the 300 series has the full 24 DIMM slot complement of memory for up to 768 gigs of RAM. It has the full range of riser cards and is fully qualified for a whole range of PCI add-ons, whether it's NICs, 5-channel cards, GPUs, and so on. The 100 series only has a subset of what is available to the 300 series. It also has a reduced memory capacity. There are only 16 DIMM slots. And again, continuing with this trend, the 10 series only has 8 DIMM slots and has a reduced number of options that are qualified for it. However, this allows us to hit really aggressive price points with the 10 series and the 100 series to really offer our customers the broadest choice of products available to them. And this, we are confident, will allow our customers to much better address this new style of IT that I was talking about a few minutes ago. You know, when they look at what they're looking to run, so if they want just a straight-up VMware host, well, maybe that's a 100 series server, or maybe a 300 series server, depending on the memory capacity. If all they want is basic file and print, well, that could be a 10 series server. And so just to really give our customers more choices when they come to design new IT environments. And this is particularly pertinent now in the time of this Windows Server 2003 migration. A lot of customers are looking to update and refresh their hardware infrastructure at the same time as migrating their Windows Server 2003 applications to more modern operating systems. And so this is a perfect opportunity for us all to start positioning this new increased portfolio of products with our customers to make sure that we're able to best meet their needs. Here's a quick highlight of some of the changes that we've introduced with Gen 9. And a lot of these changes relate to the latest processors and chipsets that were released by Intel in September last year. First up, there's a new microarchitecture. So that increases the cores, increases the performance per core compared to the previous generation. What this means to customers, you can see this in the dark blue boxes at the bottom of the slide, is that if a customer is currently running an environment of 50 servers that might be kind of Gen 6 or Gen 7 era, maybe even Gen 8 era if they've purchased servers in the last 3 years, they can potentially consolidate this entire workload onto maybe just 15 or 20 Gen 9 servers. So there's a great opportunity for our customers to consolidate their IT environment onto fewer servers with this new Haswell-based microarchitecture. Our Gen 9 servers are much more power efficient than their predecessors. Comparing to Gen 8, the previous generation, To do the same amount of work to the same level of workload, Gen 9 is about 10% more power efficient. But obviously, many of our customers are not going to be moving from Gen 8 to Gen 9. They're going to be moving from G7 or G6, and the power efficiency gains from moving from older infrastructure to Gen 9 are even more significant. And ultimately, this lowers the running costs and the total cost of ownership for the infrastructure for our customers. The last 2 points in terms of faster memory and next-gen options, these really just leverage the latest changes to Intel's chipsets to introduce the latest DDR4 memory and the latest 12 gigabit drives and SSDs, the latest PCIe 3.0 network cards and GPUs, and to really make sure that our customers are able to choose the latest and cutting-edge components to really max out their servers as and when they need to. So you can see there are some clear customer benefits here in terms of consolidating onto fewer servers or reducing running costs and ownership, improving utilization rates, or future-proofing the servers. But in 2 or 3 years' time, if a customer needs to upgrade, they're still able to with their current hardware. As I mentioned earlier, many of our customers who are running Windows Server 2003 workloads are running it on older hardware that they purchased in the kind of the window of 2008 to 2011 is what we're typically seeing. So generally G6 or in some cases G7 hardware. As you can see from this chart, the performance increases that Intel have introduced over the last few years with their new processor architectures really are phenomenal. And so if a customer is running older G6 hardware or G7 hardware, by consolidating onto fewer Gen 9 servers, they're not only going to get a great sort of reduce in their running costs because they're having to maintain and run fewer servers, but it's also going to equip them better for the future, so that over the next 3 years, the next 5 years, maybe even the next 8 years, depending on how long a customer really wants to sweat their assets, they're going to get the performance that they need from Gen 9. So this is really a fantastic timing with the release of Gen 9 in terms of a lot of the projects that our customers are beginning to put in place to migrate from Windows Server 2003 workloads. So that's a brief overview of some of the hardware that we've released over the last few months, and hopefully you'll be able to really see and appreciate that this really is cutting-edge stuff and very well-timed for the kind of Windows Server 2003 refresh projects. There are a couple more things I wanted to tell you about before I hand over to the next presenter. The first thing is HP OneView. This is an infrastructure management appliance that HP has developed to really change the way that customers monitor and manage their infrastructure hardware. As you can see on the slide, end-to-end data center automation. This manages servers, both rack servers and blade servers. It manages storage like HP 3PAR, and will do networking map overviews. And it really is very powerful software that's delivered as a virtual machine appliance to make it quick and easy for customers to get up and running. And it integrates with all of the leading management tools such as VMware vCenter or Microsoft System Center, and enables these to have deeper hooks into HP hardware. So for instance, in Microsoft System Center, if you want to have visibility of the firmware and all of your HP server estate, there are certain tools that are baked in that allow you to do this, but by deploying OneView, it gives System Center much deeper visibility into firmware levels, gives it the ability to update firmware on the fly, and really enhances a lot of the tools and the functionality. OneView itself has a very straightforward interface that is pretty cutting edge for HP. We're not really renowned for our user experience, and this is something that we're keen to change with OneView. We've designed a very intuitive interface with 5 main elements that you can see on the slide. There's a dashboard that gives you an overview of the physical inventory of the kit. There's a smart search feature that really saves system admins an awful lot of time. A system admin can search by server model, so show me all of my DL380s or show me all of my BL460 blades. You can search by VLAN, you can search by virtual machine group. It's really is a smart search to really make it quick and easy to find what you need to within your environment. There's a very intelligent map view that shows the links between your servers and storage, and a lot of your networking links as well, to make it quick and easy to see where your bottlenecks might be, but also where it makes more sense to add or change capacity. There's a very powerful templating feature which allows you to create virtual machine templates or firmware templates that when you provision or reprovision new hardware, you can quickly and easily point it at a template and get it up and running in minutes. And finally, there's a very powerful activity feed that essentially is an audit trail for the data center that makes it much easier to have a single view of everything that's going on in terms of when services come online or go offline, or when scheduled jobs are taking place. So all of this is included in OneView, and we had a major software revision for OneView that was announced in December last year, OneView 1.2. There's a new version of OneView that includes a subset of these features that is entirely free for every ProLiant server. So it really is a fantastic companion to any infrastructure refresh project. And if you're not aware of OneView and how it's licensed and some of the fantastic features, I'd highly recommend that you engage with HP or with Ingram Micro to get some training courses and to get skilled up on OneView, because it really is the future for many of HP's internal initiatives. The second thing I wanted to briefly mention on just one slide is HP's reseller option kits for Microsoft Windows Server. HP is a certified OEM for Windows Server, and we've got HP part numbers for the entire Microsoft Windows Server stack, and this really saves customers a lot of time. The HP Windows Server ROKs have HP firmware pre-provisioned so that it makes it quicker and easier to get servers up and running on HP ProLiant hardware. So this is definitely something you should be engaging with your customers, just to save them time and save them effort when they're standing up new services. And again, it really complements any Windows Server 2003 refresh project really, really well. I wanted to finish up just by talking about the concept of compute. HP defines the concept of compute not just as servers, but as combining all of the required elements within an IT environment that are needed to deliver a service. So that's servers, storage, networking, management, and services. All of these elements combine to deliver the concept of compute. And it's the compute resource that a customer requires to run any application or to deliver any service. HP is uniquely positioned in the entire IT industry in all of these key verticals. We've been the market leader in servers for a long time, but we're now number 2 or number 3, depending on which industry analyst you read, in storage. We're also number 2 or number 3 in networking. We've got some fantastic new management tools like OneView that I've just shown you, and also some industry-leading services, both delivered from HP and from our fantastic channel partners. What this all adds up to really is an end-to-end ability and architecture that is relevant to a huge range of customers, as you can see on the slide, from SMB to enterprise, from microservice to massive mission-critical servers. And it really is relevant to every customer out there. The fact that we are a leader in service is nothing new, but there are so many different industry verticals which we've got fantastic references that you guys can leverage to better position and win more business with your customers. So if you're not already, talk with HP, talk with our fantastic channel partners, and really leverage the wealth of resources that we can make available to you. But thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to take you through kind of the infrastructure, the HP ProLiant infrastructure portion of this. I think we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, so without further ado, I'll hand over to our next presenter, Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm Chris Roberts. I work in channel marketing activation under the OEM guys, really, and I'd just like to take you through the end of support for Server 2003, which is an absolutely fantastic catalyst for lots of opportunities for us in Microsoft, resellers, distribution, and then it's almost a message down to the end user as to the reasons why they need to migrate from Server 2003, the risks involved with running 2003, and then of course just educating that end user as to what comes with Server 2012 and the benefits that companies get again from using Server 2012 R2, which is the latest one. So if I just move the slide forward, then end of support is coming. There's 2 dates for the diary, really. There's July the 14th of this year, which is the end of support for Server 2003 and Small Business Server 2003. And the second date, really much earlier, 8th of April, is when we're end of supporting the extended service for Exchange 2003 as well. So yeah, many businesses really rely their day-to-day operations on their servers. So, this deadline is approaching really fastly, 170-something days left, which might sound like a lot of time, but it isn't really. Research does look for, even as small SMB, let's talk 20, 30 seats. Quite often they need 100 days plus because they're considering their infrastructure, their server, all their software and applications coming across. So it's really a key message for now, really, and too early can't be early enough. The risks of running Server 2003 past this date, Patch Tuesday will no longer exist for Server 2003, so all these incremental updates, all these critical updates after this date, July the 14th, 2014, Microsoft will no longer be sending those updates to those servers. And that could mean there's security risks and there's also compliance risks as well. So there could be of increased exposure to viruses, to malware, and certain compliance issues as well. One which comes to mind really is that the PCI industry, payment card industry, actually has some compliance issues with running unsupported software, and especially an operating system as well. So after that date, should a customer be running Server 2003 and they take payments through their server, if they're running an SQL database or a website, front-facing website taking payments, if they were to be audited, they could pass or they could fail some audits and they need to increase their software infrastructure, really. So it's just some days for the diary and some reasons to be considered as well. And moving forward as well, I suppose the opportunity for us all then is suggesting the upgrade to the latest operating system, Server 2012 R2. So what benefits can we talk about? Why move to Server 2012 R2? So rather than talking about what you're not going to get no longer with Server 2003, let's talk about what you are going to get with Server 2012 R2. So we've got some points on the screen there. We've got server consolidation. So by that, I really mean virtualization. So if we go back to Server 2003, virtualization really wasn't a word that was used much. In fact, there was only a very few solutions out there. Now, Hyper-V comes as standard in Server 2012 R2, and arguably it's a very advanced virtualization solution. And that's one real good sell point. Disaster recovery as well. It's a key consideration for businesses, and built in as well as Hyper-V for the virtualization, we've got Hyper-V Replica. So that's included in Server 2012 R2, and that creates fully automated data protection and recovery across a server or multiple servers. Flexible storage, which is cost effective as well. So, server spaces, which is included in Server 2012 R2, that has inbuilt scaling, which in 2003 might have needed some extra hardware support, and that's just simply part of Server 2012. Remote access has been very much simplified with remote access by an admin, even if away from the office, through web, and you can increase that capability through System Center, and a consistent user experience, which is very important in this day and age when people are bringing in different devices of different form factor on different operating systems as well, which is much easier to administrate when using Server 2012 R2. So going a little bit deeper into that consolidation, the benefits of virtualization, this really is a key talking subject to Server 2012 R2. It's the new work scenarios we've got on there, so it really does help VDI infrastructure, performance and scalability. So servers of 2003 using most servers don't use much of their capacity anyway. If a business was to look into how much of their server is being used at any particular time, it can be anything between a couple of percent, 20%, and very rarely does it run at peak. Virtualization on the new modern servers, well using Server 2012 R2 standard, you've got two virtual machines, and you could run some of your applications in one virtual machine, for argument's sake, let's say Exchange, and in another virtual machine you could run, for argument's sake, some backup software. So during the day, using virtualization, you'll be able to scale. You'll be able to increase resources towards the Exchange part, which could be running throughout the day during office hours. Where you need those resources, then you could automatically scale so that when that's not under demand on one virtual machine, on one server, that your backup services or some other services are running scale that dynamically. Reduced application costs as well, simply because you'll be running those on one server, often dealing with one server, one location. It helps provision workloads with those dynamic workloads in the same way you can do dynamic scaling. And if just as part and parcel of that comes with cost savings as well, because you might only be running 1 or 2 servers for disaster recovery, and the virtualization of these workloads through VDI and other benefits of using virtualization. And then also with Server 2012 R2, you've got improved productivity with the integration of Office 365. So Server 2012 R2 integrates very well with Office 365 in a hybrid solution or totally joined solution. Server 2003 is not compatible with Office 2013 or 365 in the same way that Windows XP wasn't before that was end of supported last year. Extra support for mobile applications, streamline online meetings. So the Server 2012 platform really works well with installing the Link server or SharePoint server as well. Simplified file sharing and management. Like I said, remote management is the key highlight for me there. So you don't have to be at the office connected to the server or use any third-party applications. You've got full admin web-based administration there. So what is next? What sort of options do we have on Server 2012 R2? So this is the stack. It has been reduced significantly to just 4 SKUs, and if we were to start on the far right with the Server 2012 R2 Foundation, that typically comes with the very small form factor servers, home servers. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking over Foundation. It does have a 15 user cap. It is fantastic for a very, very small business who just needs file sharing, device sharing as well, resource collaboration. But we'll start there with Windows Server Essentials. So this has a 25 user cap, an absolutely fantastic, easy to use GUI that a lot of non-techs can pick up and administrate a server. This SKU really does tie in very well with the Office 365 integration. So we're talking the computers that are connecting to the server, single log on, one-time sign in, but we have got that limitation of a 25 user cap. One real appealing feature of this is that you do not need to buy CALs. So it's just a server putting Windows Server 2012 Essentials, integrate with Office 365, choose whether you want an on-premise solution for your Exchange or you want to go in the cloud for Office 365. This is a very nice basic solution. Standard and Data Center is actually 99% the exact same SKU, but you do get a difference in virtualization rights. So both of these SKUs, Server and Data Center, you need to use a CAL or device CAL every user. And on Standard and Data Center, you can actually install and use the Essentials mode for the non-techs out there or the learners and the beginners. But the Standard does come with the use of 2 virtual machines, and Data Center is unlimited virtual machines. And this stack is available in several forms. So if it was going onto a new build HP server, then as rightly said by the last presenter, you can attach the ROK versions of these. If it's going onto a more agnostic or self-built server, we're probably talking in an OEM SKU. And then for server farms, we're probably going to go into volume licensing through those schemes. But it does boil down really to those 4 SKUs or even 3 SKUs when we're talking about Server 2012. It's either Essentials, Standard, if you want all the capabilities, and Data Center if you're really going to go into virtualization. It is possible to stack standard licenses to gain more virtual machines. So we'll just move on to the next slide. Here's a nice little chart. So when you're buying a core license of Server 2012 R2, you get the ability to run 2 CPUs, and you get the ability to use 2 CPUs and 2 virtual machines. You can then buy additional licenses, which are roughly the same cost, but that gives you the ability to run another 2 CPUs and another 2 virtual machines. And then you can do that again, at which point you're probably not going to be running 6 CPUs. You may be going to cap out using 4 CPUs, but you might wish to do that to increase to 6 virtual machines. At the point where you've got 3 additional licenses and 1 core license, 4 licenses in total, you have got the rights to run 8 CPUs. and 8 virtual machines, but there we're talking you've hit the price of data center, at which point that's where this SKU really comes into consideration. If you are selling to a customer, or you are a customer considering using more than 8 to 10 virtual machines, that's the point where you consider data center. Even though you're not getting much more, you're not getting any increased features, you are getting the rights to run more virtual machines. And on the note of CALs, client access licenses, I just wanted to put a little slide on there. As we're moving through server versions 2012 R2, I wanted to put in the channels of the server 2012 R2, that it doesn't really matter that the OEM CALs, the volume licensing CALs or the retail CALs, you can still use those to talk to any server 2012 R2, no matter what channel that's been bought through. I would also like to highlight that when you're using server 2012 CALs, they are backwards compatible, so you can still access 2008 servers and even 2003 servers. But if somebody was using just 2008 CALs, they cannot use those to talk to server 2012 servers. So yeah, they are downwards compatible, not upwards compatible, and they are channel agnostic. So yeah, I really do encourage any questions if you do want more details on the stack or the end of support of server 2003 or any of the benefits of server 2012 R2, but I'll pass you on to Adrian Boyd now. He's the SMB Channel Manager for Azure. I can give you some more points rather than the on-premise solution, the Microsoft Cloud solution. Over to you, Adrian.
Great. Thanks for your time, Chris. Thanks everyone who's on the webinar currently. So my name is Adrian Boyd. I am the Channel Manager for Azure in Microsoft SMB. So our definition of SMB is pretty much anyone under, say, 250 users or devices, pretty much. So what we have here is, within Microsoft Azure, is the cloud alternative to what you're currently running on-premise, in effect. And if we look at the agenda. So I'll have a quick discussion about what Azure is. We'll talk about where it's used, some of the case studies, and then more specifically from your reseller perspective is how would I use it? How would I monetize it, make money from it? How would I build it into my business? And then some next steps to actually learn some more and get skilled up on it that we have here. So the first slide regarding why the cloud necessarily, or even why Azure from within here. So this allows you to be a lot more kind of agnostic into the marketplace and is much more driven around the customer expectation and the proposition put in front of them. So if we look at specifically around the cloud and the Microsoft Cloud Solutions, and I'll include Azure here from the infrastructure server piece and Office 365 from the software as a service elements, then first off, it can reduce the capital expenditure. So it's a much more of a clean OpEx model where you have a reliable costing month on month rather than the big project CapEx spikes that you tend to see every few months, every year, every couple of years or so on. It's a fast time to market as well with any cloud solution. So again, if you think about some of the on-premise solutions that you're traditionally used to dealing with, then that does involve ordering the tin from distributors. It comes in, you have to spec it up, you have to install the software, the operating systems yourselves, patch it, update it, get it out to the customer, install it. And that's not quick. That's going to take several days to do, generally speaking. Within the cloud version, so within Azure, you can pretty much fire up a Windows Server instance within 10 minutes. So you've basically got that ready to go that you can then plug into your customer's network remotely, again, without having to leave your office in a lot of cases. It's elastic as well and scalable. So what I mean by that is you don't have to constantly plan for peak performance throughout the year and maintain all that expensive hardware for the rest of the year. You can actually just turn on and off and reduce services as and when necessary from within Azure itself. So as an example, a couple of the case studies we have at the moment is UCAS, the University Clearinghouse, use Azure currently because the main element of their business is obviously finding university places for students. in the summer. So what they do is they have a very low usage of on-premise infrastructure to kind of manage the admin stuff. And then when it comes around to June and they need to basically scale up for June, July, August in terms of finding students places, they actually put all their infrastructure and extend it into Azure, which actually takes up most of the workload. And then they just scale it right back down and turn the service off again come October, when they just need to go down to basic admin functions for the rest of the year for their staff from within there. And again, it allows you global availability. So again, you're not restricted by how far away you can drive or support customers here. You can actually, because it's all remote and hosted, you can actually support people on a national or even global basis. And it's also consumption-based billing. So you basically pay for what you actually use within there. So Microsoft's definition of cloud is any of our services available either on-premise, hosted with a partner, hosted with ourselves, or a hybrid scenario of the two, which seems to be the most likely most people are going at the moment. So they basically have their on-premise infrastructure, and then they'll use Azure to actually burst out and do some of the other tasks that they actually handle. So if we look at what Azure actually is, in terms of, well, what actually is the definition of Azure, where does it fit into the proposition that I understand at the moment? And the best way I can kind of describe it is, at a base level, it's basically renting out capability from Microsoft data centers that we actually use to provision our services worldwide. So be it Xbox Live, be it Skype, be it Hotmail, Outlook.com, all those services are basically based on Azure within our data centers, and you can basically provision some of that to support your business or out to your customers. So if we look at the different options available for service delivery, then on the left-hand side we have the physical, which has obviously been the very traditional model, i.e. customer wants to run an app, they buy a new piece of tin, put the operating system on it, drop the app into it, and there you go. Approximately 10 years ago, I'd say, virtualization became commoditized and a lot more frequent. So in effect, because of the speed and power of the new process, the new service that were coming out, you could run more than one app on a box. So you had the likes of Microsoft, VMware, Citrix, enabling you to actually run, several applications on one server, which saved on power and cooling and management options from within them. Then if we look at the right-hand side on the green box, the software as a service, SaaS platform, that is in essence is the complete package, including the software, delivered to the customer hosted by, say, the vendor. So our proposition there is Office 365, and I would hope and assume that all the resellers currently on the call are actually on board with Office 365, have sold it to some effect, be it Exchange mailboxes, be it Office, be it the complete package. But what Azure essentially is that if you're selling Office 365, you're selling Azure, you just happen to be selling the software on top of the pyramid that Microsoft choose to push out. So Azure essentially just means you can strip out the elements of Office 365, the Office, the Exchange, the SharePoint, and then you can drop in any other application to support your customer's infrastructure. So if we look at the middle box, the IaaS, the infrastructure as a service, in essence, you're just renting out space in our data center. You can drop any operating system, use that for whatever you want. You're just renting out compute space from our data center, so processing power, RAM, and storage space. But the key thing is that our competitors in that space tend to be the likes of AWS and Google, for instance. But Microsoft's big strength here is that a lot of the software you're actually going to run in that data center, in those instances, will tend to be Microsoft software. So our real key USP that we have is that we can also play around in, if you look at the next box, the purple box, the PaaS, the platform as a service, is that, well, if you're going to rent out space from our data center and drop in Windows Server 2012 and potentially some middleware such as, say, SQL database on there, or even we have types with Oracle and SAP as well, is that actually you can actually provision virtual machines already pre-configured with Windows Server in and with SQL in as well. So you just need to drop in your application on top of it. And that just means all the billing is actually included within there as well. So you don't have to pay any extra for, say, the server software, for the CALs as well. So it's unlimited CAL connection. If you've chosen to drop it in with, let's say, SQL as a database, then again, you're paying per minute of usage for all the software contained in them, including SQL as well as the server and CALs. And that's where actually the economics of this really start to shine, because you're not paying for perpetual usage software that may only support your business because you're only using it for, let's say, 3 hours a week for your accounts or payroll package, for instance. Again, with Azure, you can just spark up the service as and when you need it, shut it down when it's not being used, and you're only paying per minute of what you're actually using from within there. So again, if I kind of break that down in terms of the management aspects of this, because I'd like to think that as a reseller, you can be very transactional here, or you can actually look to, I quite like the managed service proposition piece of actually servicing my customers, tying them into service contracts. So if you look at the left-hand side here, the on-premise side, what it kind of comes down to is almost like the management effect. So if you look at all the various levels of a customer says, well, I want to run this application, how am I going to do this? As a reseller, you might say, okay, well, you're going to need to buy this server, and now you're going to need to buy this networking hardware, and you're going to need to buy this operating system, this middleware, and so on, up to the stack, including the application, which is fine, but it does mean that you have to procure all these services, you have to manage these, plug them all in, make sure they fit, make sure they work, secure all those on an ongoing basis. If we go to, say, the next step, the infrastructure as a service element, which is obviously hosted potentially within Azure, then actually the hardware elements of that are managed by the vendor, in this case Microsoft. So the actual hardware elements of the compute power, the cooling, the server and so on is all managed by Microsoft. Yourselves as a reseller or the customer are just managing the software elements, the operating system, the middleware, the app dropping on top of it. Again, moving over one to the right where you go into the platform as a service, is that, again, within Azure, you can actually choose us at Microsoft to actually manage the operating system. So you create the virtual machine with Windows Server with, say, SQL as the middleware on there. So all you need to do is actually install your application on this virtual server. And that actually means that all you need to worry about is managing the application. We at Microsoft will manage all the hardware elements. We'll manage the patching and the updating of the operating system, and also, say, the SQL, the middleware on there as well. And then finally on the right, the software as a service just means us at Microsoft manage every single aspect of that, which is the Office 365 element in effect. But what this kind of demonstrates is, in essence, if your customer all that they require is actually the application sitting on top of it, so the very top box on each of those 4 pillars, is from a reseller perspective, why would you necessarily, if you want to tie them into a service management contract ongoing, potentially, is why would you necessarily want to keep doing it all on premise and have to manage all those continuous elements when potentially you can offload an awful lot of that management structure, the firefighting, the keeping the lights on, to us at Microsoft within our Azure platform. So that's the key element. The customer, generally all they care about is the application on top. Is it available? Can I access it from any of my devices? Can I access it from home and so on? They're not particularly fussed necessarily about what's sitting underneath it in terms of the hardware, the software elements of it. So again, just a slide that will illustrate this is that if you look at Gartner's Magic Quadrants that actually run across the infrastructure as a service, platform, software as a service, virtualization aspects, what's quite key here is you've got 2 players in the leading quadrants, the top right-hand quadrants of each of these sectors. But the key thing is Microsoft are in one of those 2 players in all 4 areas, and we have a different competitor in each of them, because the likes of Amazon will only play in the infrastructure as a service. VMware will generally only play within the virtualization. Salesforce in the platform as a service, for instance. So the key thing there to demonstrate is that if you bet on Microsoft and go with Microsoft on Azure to support your customers and support your business, is that you can actually provision a whole host of services without ever necessarily leaving the same vendor, the same management console, the same point of contact that you have from within there as well. So it reduces an awful lot of admin overheads in that respect. So if we dive into the actual Azure platform a little bit more, so if you go onto the Azure website, you'll probably notice that there's about 35 different services on there, and they can be quite difficult to actually register and say, well, I don't really see what I should be focusing on here. What do I need to learn? You've got machine learning and HD Insights and Hadoop listed there. You know, as an SMB customer reseller, what do I need to focus on? So I'd say From my experience in the last sort of 6 months since we've launched it into the reseller channel, is there are 4 key areas for you to look at and focus on. So learn these, go to market with these 4 propositions, and you will cover 98% of these scenarios you'll come across. So first on the left-hand side is data backup. And again, coming back into the hybrid scenario, is that when you're selling on-premise hardware, such as the HP Gen9s, for instance, if you're replacing Server 2003 infrastructure, the question really is, well, how are you securing the data that's actually on there? What's your backup strategy? How are you, if they're still backing up to tape on-premise, for instance, or flash drive and still keeping it on-premise, it's not really going to help you should a disaster befall your office, for instance, or someone steals all your equipment. So being able to offload and replicate that data and back it up remotely into Microsoft's data centers actually gives you that kind of peace of mind and security, but without much management. So that runs at, say, 13p a gigabyte. So again, with any server, ask about, well, how are you securing that data? If they've got 100 gigs of files on there that they need to secure as it's a file share, then absolutely there you go. That times 13p per gigabyte per month just means you're paying £13 a month to actually secure the data on there constantly. And you've got rollback functionality where you can roll back to an image from 6 months ago if necessary on there, and you can schedule it to back up automatically every day at 5:30 or every week or whenever you actually wish. So backup is the easy commoditized version. And then I'd say look at disaster recovery as well. So again, going back to the security of data, but should disaster befall you, well, how quickly do you actually need to get back up as a business? Because you may have offloaded and backed up 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes of data, but again, if your server blows up, how long is it going to take to get a new server in? How long is it going to take to get that app back up and running? And Azure allows you to actually put in a highly available disaster recovery solution so you can protect Hyper-V servers right now with Azure without the need for additional servers. So the historic idea of actually if I need instant high availability, so if one server goes down, the other server picks up the workloads, you no longer need to actually buy the additional server, the expensive 20 grand SAN sitting in the middle of the network switches underneath. Azure Site Recovery is currently £34 per virtual machine per month and will actually replicate your on-premise Hyper-V VMs into Azure. It will heartbeat with each of them, and if those VMs go down, then Azure will automatically switch up into the Azure virtual machines and they become the production use for the business. So right there, if you've got 4 machines that you actually want to protect, instead of the on-premise solution being 30 grand worth of SAN switches, extra server, VMware licensing, operating system licensing, you've now got a very predictable OPEX model of £34 times 4 VMs per month works out at £140 per month to protect and put in high availability into that SMB customer. And again, deployment in virtual machines as the third pillar. So again, Server 2003, how are they actually migrating? What's their migration plan to get to 2012 there? How do they even know that application they've got on there that they paid some developer 10 years ago to develop and he put it on a Server 2003 CRM system and they don't even know where he's disappeared to anymore? How do you know that's even going to run on the latest operating system? Well, within Azure, you can choose to move that app into Azure and leave it there as an alternative to on-premise, but you can also have some kind of test and dev element here as well. So for your customers, you estimate there's over about 400,000 Server 03 instances still in SMB in the UK, is you can go out to your customer base and actually offer testing services to see whether that application they have will actually run and perform within 2012. And by that we mean you spin up an Azure virtual machine, you install the application in there, and you can do your testing remotely without the need of having to provision additional hardware instances from within there. And finally, identity as well. So within here, if you have Office 365 customers, we have something called Azure Active Directory. There's a free version of this, and what that essentially means is this runs parallel to your on-premise Active Directory, but is more the always-on, always-available variant. So it just means now you can access your software as a service applications from any device, from any location with an internet connection. So no longer do you need to have to set up a whole host of protection, identity, and management tools around the on-premise infrastructure. You can actually offload an awful lot of the access and manageability into Azure. And you'll see this actually become a lot more prevalent when we release Windows 10. Again, we've got the webcast later this afternoon directly from Microsoft announcing it and demonstrating it. But you'll actually be able to log into Windows 10 devices with your Azure Active Directory username and password rather than your more traditional on-premise Active Directory username and password. And that just opens up a whole load more opportunities around managing your particular client base. So again, I'm going to be rushing through some of these. In terms of why you should prefer Azure and look to prefer it, so first off, it will actually free up some of that large capital expenditure. So if you've got a project going on and you're spending 80% of that, the customer, on fairly low margin hardware, Microsoft licenses, servers and so on, well actually, putting things into Azure just means there's a lot more of that budget that you can actually channel into your support and services contracts, which are a lot more higher margin rich rather than the actual on-premise side of the business. It's a more strategic partnership as well. If you're first in and you're discussing Azure and you architect that solution for them, you're their trusted advisor. You're not necessarily a box shifter anymore. You haven't got the opportunity where another reseller can come in and take that business from you, because it's going to be quite difficult for them to actually unpick how you've structured their Azure environment to support them. Geographic reach, as I mentioned earlier, so you can actually manage people remotely, be it nationally, be it on a worldwide scale as well. And again, reducing the non-billable time. So all that time, for instance, spent bringing in on-premise servers, speccing them up, patching them, carrying them out, delivering them to your customer, walking up 4 flights of steps to plug it all in and set it all up for them, going out to customers in terms of assessing it. And also, if you've got a break-fix business, having that ad hoc SLA where you have to drop everything to go out to fix someone's server, for instance. Within Azure, you can do all this remotely from the office and manage it as well. Again, so coming down to the final few slides here. So within Azure, there's a couple of different ways to buy it. So again, you can buy it direct from Microsoft, which are the book-ended versions here, and that's going to cut you out as a reseller completely, so you're not actually making any margin out of that. So historically, that's always been how we sold Azure. Now, as of August last year, it's come out on the open licensing program, which Ingram can actually sell and support to you. So it's a standard volume license where you're selling Azure to your customers to support backup, disaster recovery, virtual machines, and any other solution you happen to go with them. That open make it very simple to support Azure. There's no multiple lines of licensing you need to worry about. So there's only one Azure SKU on the price list, and it's just Azure credit. So you buy it and it can be redeemed against any Azure service that we sell, and it acts like a mobile phone top-up in effect. So you buy one Azure credit, you will buy it at whatever the disty margin is that they give it to you, so it'll be considerably less than the £61.09. When you actually activate that credit in a customer portal, it will activate and top up that account by £61.09 worth of credit. And then whatever services they use against Azure will just drain that down until they have to come back and buy more credit as well. So fairly simple. You don't have to worry about buying the right Azure product, the right Azure licensing SKU as well. You just buy Azure credit and keep selling it into the customer as and when necessary. And finally on here, there are 3 partner scenarios for Azure and Open, the volume licensing. So on the left-hand side is the resell motion. So just straight up transactional, Mr. Customer, do you want backup? Do you want to use some Azure services? I will resell you the credit for it. But actually the key element that I would say you can make an awful lot more money on is on the right-hand side, the managed services. So if you don't have a managed service business, or you're thinking, how can I actually set up a managed service business and actually tie customers into me and make some more margin-rich services element, this is how it will allow you to do it. And that's because if you look at the account set up in, on the left-hand side, generally speaking, you have to set it up in the customer name. So the customer gets the Azure credit, they set it up, they manage all the services. Should, however, what you can do with Azure is you're actually allowed to white box it in effect. So that means you can actually buy Azure credit in. If your company is called, let's say, Contoso IT, you can actually, instead of offering Azure backup at 13p a gigabyte and making your 15 points of margin on the back end from the disty, it's not going to make you rich. However, if you actually use Azure Backup, but basically rebrand it as Contoso IT Backup and charge it at 60p per gigabyte, and you're managing the backup because you set it up for the customer and have some kind of recovery service in place should that service go down, but you're just buying it as Azure backup, you're now in the margins of 600% because you've just basically rebadged Azure as your data center service. So Azure will actually allow you as a reseller to go out and offer enterprise-grade data center services to your customers, but in effect, you're just using Azure on the back end and managing that remotely. So it allows you to have a really robust hosted service you can offer to your customers, margin-rich, but without all the headache of administration and management of your own data center or ongoing costs in that respect. So last slide here, next steps. What I recommend you do is, as a Microsoft partner, you get internal use rights credits. So you get £65 every month of Azure credit for yourselves, just as a Microsoft partner. So I'd highly suggest you get hold of that, open up the Azure portal, play around with some of the services. So have a look at the virtual machines, the backup, have a look at the management portal, just get comfortable with it. It's a very easy thing, but once you've done that, then it gives you confidence you can actually go out to the marketplace. I would suggest also moving an internal workload as well. So just move, say, a DC into the cloud, move a file server, move some element into Azure just so you're using it yourself. So again, you can see and check that the service and you're comfortable with it in terms of latency and how it works, for instance. And then finally, I would suggest, as I mentioned earlier about the fact you can white box it, is actually build your own IP around this. So by all means, go out to the market with Azure, straight up as it is, and resell it. But actually, if you think a bit smarter about how you can use it to power your business and actually underpin your hosted services, that's where you actually start to make the real money in terms of Azure, because you don't have to surface anything to the customer. Should you choose to, you can just rebadge it as your own. So grand, thanks a lot for your time there. I shall pass you on now to the Ingram gentleman. Sorry, I've forgotten your name.
Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I'll leave you to it. Thanks.
Okay, good. That's amazing. The technology works. I'm actually currently sat in HP's offices delivering this, and I'll be very brief. So I'm here to just give you a very brief run through of what we can actually achieve for you in terms of helping with the migration of customers from Windows 2003. Obviously, you've heard today a number of options which are open to you, and the biggest challenge I think we probably face, or our customers face, is actually confidence about change being good in the right way, the right change being good, because most of us, certainly probably more in the UK than most other places in the world, are risk averse. And certainly business owners are risk averse, so they don't want to make wrong decisions. They want to make the right decision, which is right for their business. And with many options, the question is, how much goes to the cloud? How much goes to another platform? Should they invest in another platform? Should they put everything across into some form of cloud solution? What choices are there, and what will be best for their business? And what Ingram Micro are here to do is to help our partners give the best advice to their customers, and in addition to assist in that migration design, planning, requisition, implementation and management process in order to make sure that the customer gets what they need and their business is not at risk. Many implications obviously around security, around network bandwidth, around which platform to choose if they want to continue, which parts to migrate and which ones not to, and how to transition their business out of 2003 and onto the next generation of whatever that will be. So within our business, we have a number of capabilities. We cover a multitude of platforms, a multitude of environments, and basically that knowledge is accessible to our partners in order to actually help come up with and arrive at the right solution. Some of it is chargeable, some of it is obviously free. It does depend very much upon what your requirement is, but we're here basically to enable our partners to deliver what they need. We've got a wealth of experience around server virtualization, server migrations, and obviously we also have some expertise around the cloud solutions, particularly the Microsoft ones, and transitioning between on-prem and off-prem. So what's important is to give you the ability to deliver what you need and advise you accordingly. So I'm actually not Mo, I'm Paul Jeffrey. I actually run the services business because oddly Mo is actually currently delivering a workshop for a customer at short notice on the Windows 2003 migration, in fact, today. So in short, and in summary, I won't go through the slides, but in summary, we have a range of services available to help you transition your customers from Windows 2003, and hopefully to augment what you want to do yourselves, and also what if you are missing something and you want help and assistance in transitioning your own business into being able to do something, we would like to advise you and help you accordingly. So that is the summary. If you need contact, normal contacts would be through your standard account manager in terms of access to the services team. It could be through the pre-sales team. We've got an advanced solutions pre-sales team you can have access to with extensive knowledge around various technologies, and or indeed myself, which we can make available afterwards. So that's all I need to speak to. It's probably open for questions now, I would expect, given it's 3 o'clock. Could somebody open the mics? If anybody would like to say any questions.
What a great presentation, everyone. I just want to direct all of our audience to our final poll questions. If you could take a minute to just answer those questions and give us some feedback on the presentation and on everything that you've learned today. We will pass those answers on to our presenters. Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have anything else to add? Awesome. Well, if you had a question that we didn't get to answer today, we will be able to pass those on to our presenters, and they will be able to follow up with you. Special thanks to Ingram Micro for sponsoring today's event. Also, thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today. We hope to see you back for another SpiceWorks Partner webinar. But until then, stay spicy.